Hello, welcome to another tutorial on BlenderPrints. Today we'll be making a chair in Blender and rendering it. Okay, to start, I've already removed all the objects in the scene, so we're going to start with the cube for the seat. First, move the cube upwards and scale it down on the Z-axis by pressing S and then Z. Press Shift D, Z, and S to scale, then press Shift Z to scale on every axis but the Z-axis, and then press S, then Z to scale on the Z-axis, and then press the button for the Y-axis to align with the Y-axis. Move the chair leg over and align it with one of the corners. Press G, then Y to move it on an axis. Then Shift D, and then press X to move it on the X-axis after you've duplicated it. Select both of them and then align with the X-axis by tapping that X-axis in the top right corner. Then press Shift D, Y, and move it over. Now that we have 4 pegs, I'm going to move on to the back of the chair. So create a plane, rotate it 90 degrees by pressing R, Y, 90, press G, then X, then GZ, then S, Y to scale it on the Y axis and move it up to that position. Then tap into edit mode, press 2, select the top edge, press G, Z, move it up, and then tap back out of edit mode. Press Shift D to make a new one, and press Y to move it over. Then press Shift D again and move it over again. Now that we have the 3 prongs in the back of our chair, we're going to align them with the back of the chair. Select all the pegs on the back of the chair and move them over slightly by pressing G then X. Now that they're aligned with the back chair, we can continue. Press Shift A and get a cube. Scale it normally, then scale it on the Y-axis by pressing SY. Press G, X to move it backwards, and SX to scale it on the X-axis. This will be the top of the back of the chair. Press GX to move it and align it once more. Then under the Modifiers tab, hover over the Add Modifier and go down to Solidify. Next, apply the modifier, and then go to the next modifier called Subdivision Surface. Increase it to about 3 on each one, on the rendering and the levels in the viewport. Then Control R and move it the ring down, or loop cut, on the top and the bottom by clicking and dragging. Do the same on the sides. And then we'll have like smoothed out object. Delete the other 2 prongs and press Shift D after we move it forward and down. Then press Y to move it over on the Y-axis after you press Shift D. And take our backrest and move it forward by pressing G then X and realign. Tap into edit mode and do the same thing that we did with the backrest with the headrest. Press Control R to make 2 more loop cuts and do the same on the sides of the top and the top. Do this on the top and the bottom until we have a normal shaped headrest. Move the headrest out of the way again and select all 3 of the prongs and select the back edges of them as we're going to curve the back of the chair to make it more lifelike. Align with the Y-axis, push R, and make sure you turn on proportional editing, which is that little circle on the top of the screen, and then move it to the side so that we have this curved backrest. Now that we have that, we can move the headrest back and move that up and tilt it. on the y-axis so that the chair looks more lifelike. So next, tab into edit mode and make sure you have proportional editing on so you can move this over. Make sure it's see through by the thing above options, which is like wireframe. Then move that over by selecting it. Then tab back out and select the bottom of the seat of the chair. Tab into edit mode, right click and select subdivide. Increase the amount by 10. Go over to modifiers, subdivision modifier, change it to 3 as normal. Then tab back into edit mode, first apply. And select the top faces right in the middle of the chair. This will make us so there's some structure to the chair, like where you sit. As you can see, we have a smoothed out bottom of the chair. Also select the ridge in the middle. This will add some more geometry to the chair. And move that up. And now we have a regular chair. Press G then Z to move this up a little to fit the back of the chair, the pegs of the chair. Select one peg and press S then Shift Z to scale down on the non-Z axis. Delete the other pegs and select the one we're working on and apply a subdivision modifier. Make sure it's at 3, then you're having edit mode, press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. Do this on the top and the bottom. Zoom in, turn off proportional editing. Add another loop cut, scale this down, and this will give it a nice peg look on the bottom of the chair. It seems a bit small, so let's scale it out. Press Shift D, then X to move it on the X-axis after you've duplicated it, and then align with the negative Y-axis. Select both of these pegs, go on line with the negative X-axis, Shift D, and move them both over after you press Y. Select all of this and press Ctrl J, and this will make it one object. Now we're going to move on to the part where we add the lighting and render it. Then move this chair up a bit and add a plane and scale it up a ton. Then tab into edit mode, press 2 to go to edge selection, move that edge backwards on the X-axis, then press E and Z to extrude that back edge in the Z direction. Select that edge in the corner, press Ctrl B, and scroll the mouse wheel to increase the number of bezels. Then click again, tab back out, and move the chair backwards. This will be our set. Add a new camera and press 0 to open the camera viewport. Press N to open the little menu on the side, and go over to view and press that button, which is locking the camera to the view. Now you can zoom out until you see the chair and center in on the chair. This is what the final image will look like. Now that you've zoomed in on the chair, scale up the set so that you don't see the background of the image. Feel free to adjust the image accordingly to your chair. Create a new material and just make it a nice color, like brown, for the wood. I'm not going to go into texturing this video but I may make a video on it later. Now, we're going to add some lights. Go over down to light after you press Shift A. Move this up by pressing GZ. Make sure you made an area light. If you didn't, you can always edit it, change it in the light tab. Scale this up and move it on the X-axis. Move it on the Y-axis by pressing GY, and then press RX to rotate it on the X-axis and to center it on the chair. Go ahead and change it to 500 watts. I'll change it later. Press GY to move it on the Y-axis, then RX to rotate it towards the chair. Press Shift D, then Shift X, and then using R and X and R and Y to rotate it towards the chair. Now that's pretty right, I'm going to add a large area light. So increase the size by a lot, and increase the wattage to 1000 after you center it on the chair. Press Shift Z to move it towards the chair. And then increase the wattage, as I said before. Now that that's looking pretty good, change the cycling engine to cycles and change it to GPU compute, and we have our chair.